let's face it, in Jedi Survivor, there aren't many force abilities that Cal can actually use when he's in combat. Because, I mean, don't get me wrong, Cal actually has a wide range of force abilities, but actually when you're thinking about it, when it comes to actually fighting enemies, the only real force abilities you have is push and pull. And yes, there's also force lift and slam, and also mind trick, but I mean, if you've ever played the game, you'll know that mind trick is basically useless at this point, so hopefully in the next game they expand on it. But also force slam and force lift are basically just push and pull, just in a different direction. And so in Jedi Survivor, I want to actually see some more force abilities that Cal actually has, especially ones that you can use in combat to help you fight, and not just relying solely on the lightsaber. Especially because if you think about it now, Cal Kestis is on a planet that has a Jedi temple, so surely he's going to learn some secrets and some new force abilities from the Jedi temple. And let's start off with the first ability that I want to see in the game, and that's Force Lightning. And I mean, if you played any Star Wars game, you will know why I want Force Lightning. And I know, Force Lightning is a dark side ability and Cal is more of a light side user, so it wouldn't really work. But I mean, at the end of Jedi Survivor, Cal sort of kind of hinted that he was giving up the whole Jedi Order sort of thing, and he's just now more or less a Force wielder, as well as the fact that Cal also got a more dark side towards the end of the game. I mean, he still has the Force Rage / Force Slow ability even after you beat Bode. So if Cal actually having dark side abilities wouldn't be too far-fetched, especially since Force Slow is actually also a dark side ability. Having Force Lightning would actually make combat a little bit more interesting if they do it right and don't make it insanely overpowered, obviously. Okay, next up, Force Speed. And I know what you're thinking. Well, Force Speed will just act like Force Slow, it'll just slow everyone around you, and then maybe Cal will be a little bit more faster. But that's not really what I mean. What I mean by Force Speed is more of like a Force Dash, even though we technically have Force Dash, because that's what the mid-air dash is called. It's called Force Dash, I think, in game. But what I mean is, when you're fighting enemies, you can use Force Speed or, well, Force Dash to quickly dash between enemies, so that you could be like fighting one enemy over here and then you can quickly dash to another enemy, and whilst doing so, if you quickly dash to them, it will cause them to be off guard and break their block, and obviously it will take some force, so it won't be too overpowered. But also, then again, you can also just make it so that Cal runs faster. But I mean, I've played many games where the character is running at super speed, and you can just never get the running animation right. Doesn't matter how hard you try, so which is why if they do add Force Speed, I hope it's more like a dash between enemies whilst you're fighting them. Okay, next up is Force Grip, but not really Force Grip, more or less just being able to control enemies when they're mid-air, because if you've ever played Jedi Academy, once you get to level 3 on Force Grip, you can basically fling enemies around whilst they're in the mid-air, and that's what I want to do, because in Jedi Survivor, we have the ability to lift enemies, but we just can't do anything once they're lifted into the air. And I think in the next game, what I want to see is expanded on. I think expand that force power to allow you to be able to control and fling them about, and so basically you can lift an enemy up into the air and just fling him off a cliff. I just want to throw enemies off cliffs. Alright, so the next ability is Force Heal, and I know what you're thinking, whoa. Cal is already overpowered when it comes to health. He has so much health in the end of Jedi Survivor, and I mean, yeah, let's face it, at the beginning of the next game, they're going to reset the health back to the smallest little bit, and you'll only have 2 stim canisters, but pretty quickly, we're going to be able to have a massive health bar in that game, and then we're probably going to have about 12 stim canisters as well, so we don't need any more healing or health stuff. And but when it comes to Force Heal, I'm not talking like how Seer Junda had it, where she basically just somehow managed to Force Heal herself, because as far as I'm aware, canonically, Force Heal doesn't just work by I've healed myself, like it does in Jedi Academy, where it's just so overpowered where you can just heal yourself by pressing a single button. But that's not what I want. What I want is, instead of having Force Heal being an ability where you press a button and boom, you start healing yourself, is when you pull an enemy towards you, you can then press another button that basically drains the health from that said enemy into you. Because as far as I'm aware, that's how Force Heal works in canon, is you drain the life force from one being into another, usually yourself. So what you'd basically be able to do is mid-combat, you'd be able to basically grab an enemy, and instead of wasting a stim canister, you can take someone like a stormtrooper and drain his health and then you'd basically use some force, and what you'd do is you'd convert some of your force meter into health. Alright, next up, Force Sense. Now, a force ability I hope we'll be able to get in the next game is the ability to be able to sense where enemies are. So essentially what would happen is you'd activate the ability pressing, I don't know, a combination of buttons or whatever, And what would happen is you would be able to see where enemies are through walls and stuff, and see what objects you can pick up and what objects you can't, what stuff requires certain force abilities, whereabouts you can dash across, you know, just sort of like a sense. But you wouldn't be able to do it for too long, because whilst it's active you'd be slowly losing some of your force bar, and it'd basically just be a way for you to be able to tell where enemies are in the game, and maybe add a bit more of stealth missions to the game, because like I previously mentioned with force health, I feel like something that they probably are going to do in this game is have a section where BD1 is gone, because pretty much in every single game right now there's been a moment where BD1 has not been with Cal. Alright, you might not have spotted it, but in the first game in Fallen Order, there was a section where you had to go ahead and find BD1, you didn't have him. And then there was also a section in Jedi Survivor where you don't actually have BD1, you are fighting, well technically when you're Seer you don't have BD1, but when you're playing as Cal Kestis and you're going after Bode and you first fight Bode for the first time on top of that hill, you don't actually have BD1. Well, I feel like one of the things that's probably going to happen is we have a moment where Cal Kestis is not with BD1, and so what happens is Cal ends up, we have a bit more of like a stealth moment where Cal doesn't want to get alerted, so he has to use the force sensibilities to see where enemies are. I feel like that would be cool, but regardless, force sense would probably be a cool ability to have. And that's basically all the force powers that I kind of hope that we get in the game. There is also technically a force drain I want, where essentially if we're in boss fights with a force user, we can sort of absorb their force and give it to us and fill up our force meter. But I feel like there's no point in that ability, because the only person we're probably going to face in this game that has the force is Darth Vader. So what's the point of an ability that we only ever use in boss fights? But yeah, and that's basically all the force abilities I think we should probably have in the next game. If you disagree, let me know in the comments. If you think there are other abilities that you want to see, maybe a force projection, not really sure how that would work, but yeah. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one. See ya!